My name is David Firestein, and I'm Senior Vice President with the EastWest Institute's Strategic Trust Building Pillar. And I'd like to share a few thoughts on some things that are happening in U.S. China relations today. Well, I think we're in a period now where we're just beginning to see the contours of what the new Trump administration's policy on the South China Sea is going to be. But I think the interesting question is whether the comments that we've heard from Mr. Tillerson and also from White House spokesman Sean Spicer are in fact in a sense, authoritative statements or articulations of U.S. policy, or, on the contrary, are they folks that are new in their positions, that are trying to find the right language to express themselves, but that are not yet deeply familiar with some of the complexities and nuances of the policy challenges in the South China Sea and more broadly? That, I think, is a question mark, and we're going to learn more very soon. But potentially, we are seeing a significant departure from U.S. policy. If, in fact, the comments of Mr. Tillerson and Mr. Spicer are reflective of the Trump administration's actual policy on South China Sea, then potentially taking those comments at face value, we could be looking at scenarios in which the United States is seeking to use military means to intercept and perhaps shoot down airplanes and naval vessels or other types of commercial vessels that may be in the area to prevent them from getting to these islands. That would be obviously a very significant and drastic departure from previous U.S. policy. And to me, and I think to others, it's still unclear as to whether that is, those kinds of comments are to be taken literally. But if they are taken at face value, then I think what would be implied is a greater level of more robust U.S. military action that could result in retaliatory responses from China. And over time, I think we'll get a sense for whether that will play out in terms of real actions on the part of the United States. So we've talked about some contentious regional security issues, but let me say a few words about the trade and economic dimension of the U.S.-China relationship. I think the issue of Taiwan is a very central issue right now on the agenda of the Trump administration. It's been in the news for some weeks, ever since then President-elect Donald Trump opted to take a phone call from Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, something that represented a break from many decades of tradition and diplomatic convention in the United States. And it caused people to wonder whether the Trump administration would take a fundamentally different point of view on the issue of Taiwan and on the Taiwan-related issues in the U.S.-China relationship. However, subsequent to taking that phone call, the Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen transited the United States en route to and from Central America. But during that transiting of the United States, the Trump administration, both in the person of the President-elect and in the person of other advisors around Donald Trump, opted not to meet with President Tsai Ing-wen, thus suggesting that there are limits to which the Trump administration will not go in terms of dealing with Taiwan. So to me, it suggests that we have a new administration that is willing to take a fresh look at some of the conventions and norms that have governed U.S. approaches to Taiwan in the past, but at the same time, recognizing that there are some red lines that it would be counterproductive to cross. And on the whole, my assessment is that I don't think we're going to see a fundamentally different approach to Taiwan on the part of the Trump administration. What we've seen in recent years is that the trade component and economic component of the U.S.-China relationship has kind of served as a ballast in the bilateral relationship. And even when things have been rocky with reference to the South China Sea or U.S. arms sales to Taiwan or questions over the Dalai Lama or Tibet or other contentious issues in the relationship, what has kept the relationship steady year after year and decade after decade, certainly in the last 30 years or so, is the trade relationship. A lot of people have observed that the Trump administration is rather negative in its tonality on the issue of trade with China, but they sometimes miss a more positive element that is also present in the rhetoric. And that is that while the traditional framing of China, including by candidate Donald Trump during the campaign, has been of a job stealer, or sort of stealer of U.S. manufacturing jobs, there is also another element that is often overlooked, and that is that China can become a part of the solution to the issue of U.S. job loss potentially through significant scale investment in U.S. infrastructure. And one thing that I perceive that the Trump administration is going to be open to is not only the possibility of being, quote, tough on China with respect to trade, but on the positive side of the ledger, looking at possibilities to streamline Chinese and more generally foreign investment in the United States to actually create jobs across the country and in the American heartland. And if, in fact, the Trump administration and China can work together on the issue of infrastructure investment and using Chinese capital to meet some of the unmet infrastructure needs that total into the trillions of dollars in the United States, that might be the starting point for potentially a fundamental reframing of China from job killer to job creator. That could be a very positive dynamic in the U.S. China relationship.